Okay, introduce yourself.
My name is Sophia,
Okay.
initiated Queen of Harlem, Fifi.
Okay.
Iya, initiated Iya. Been on all the paths that God has created thus far so that I can
Wow.
have a better understanding, okay?
Wow.
And when I write about myself, I talk about the fact that I'm the inheritor, okay? I inherited the benefits of all of the sacrificing African Americans that were in Harlem since the 1920s, okay? And too much for this little brief interview. We're here in front of the Schomburg,
Right.
Arthur Schomburg Memorial Library, which is the second construction, okay? The first building was actually at 101 West 135th Street, okay? And it housed almost a complete collection of Arthur Schomburg, okay? And as I said to the good brother here, prior to having this teaching hospital open here, this newer building,
Right.
okay, the Harlem Hospital was the birthplace for the majority of African American children that were born from the 1930s. Okay.
Oh, yeah?
This building that is being demolished there on 136th and 137th Street. This is the newer building, okay? This was a regular meeting place for many great leaders, church leaders, political advocates, and activists, okay? What's the boy? Oh, I can't even tell you before you get to 145th Street and Lenox Avenue to that part. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar used to play right here when he was a young man. Okay, yes, in that park right there on 135th Street between 9th and 7th.
Right.
The last time that I marched here was in June of 2014, because the March for Ilambe Bray, an international political leader who fought for the rights of African Americans in New York, the United States, and Africa, ended right here. But tell me what you'd like to know. And
Well, we can start. Well, you was telling me somebody used to live up here.
oh, Langston Hughes, when these were just row housing, I visited him here several times. Langston Hughes used to live here, right here. I mean, so many.
What years was that?
Hughes lived here until how old I was. So I guess about 1961, 62. He was still living there.
So this was all like brownstones.
Yes, and yes, brownstones, a few famous restaurants.
Wow.
But we were talking about in each one of these blocks, you know, Thea Gibson came from about 5 blocks up. You know, my father had the first community action program. This is a lot for you.
Oh, yeah?
First community action program in the city of New York. Had the first food program. But that's all going to be a part of my book. So, you know, I think if there's something specific that you're interested in, I'll tell you about it. But, you know, otherwise I'm going to let that go, because I love you, I really do, and I'm glad that you're doing it. But something specific, and I'll talk to you about it. You know.
Okay. I mean, this was once the Mecca for African Americans. I mean, right?
Well, you know, it's called Mecca. If you're in the street,
Right.
okay, and you know that, you'd be talking about Mecca or Medina. All right. That's because of the very strong. We're not talking about the 60s, 70s. You have to understand that Africans have been traveling here even before, and you can confirm that right here. Have been traveling here before the system of slavery that we understand for the last, that took place in the late 1600s. But we were here way before that, and so were Muslims. In fact, a lot of people who founded great Muslim movements in this country for African Americans came right back from 136th Street.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You're saying before the what? In the what hundreds? In the 1600s?
Oh,
15,
no.
1700s?
In terms of being here,
Uh-huh.
oh yeah, we were here 1500s, definitely.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, Africans were traveling here. See, people talk about Juneteenth and think they know what it means, but Juneteenth was actually the celebration of Africans going back home. You understand what I'm saying? Who came from primarily East Africa and was in the East Coast of the United States and the Caribbean. You understand? East and West Caribbean, okay? So that's one of the problems we had, okay? When people always say, oh, we always want to claim that we're also Native American. It's because we were integrated with those tribes. Oh, Lord, I got to stop. Okay. Okay? But I'm just saying, so one of the problems with the movement going to the West is that this new form of slavery was foreign to a lot of Africans and Native Americans, and they had to choose whether or not to go west with their Indian family. You understand what I'm saying? That's why it's called the Trail of Tears. Not that they were just sad about moving from what we now call Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia. You understand what I'm saying? South Carolina and the Delta. Not because they were just sad about that, but they had to choose. Some of the people getting off the boats were also relatives to them. I gotta go. All right, I love you.
The Trail of Tears shouldn't have happened. People at the time knew it was wrong. People at the time knew it was illegal. People at the time knew it was unconstitutional. The United States should not have forcibly removed the Cherokee Nation from its homeland in 1838 and 1839. This split apart a unified people who had chosen to live together for centuries, organizing themselves around a sophisticated common law with a capital and recognized regions and all 7 family clans represented in every town. Obviously, it was wrong when we consider the loss of life that took place in the forcible removal of the Cherokees from their home in the southeast to what was Indian Territory, now the state of Oklahoma in the Midwest. The official U.S. reports suggest that roughly 400 people died. We know that, in fact, at least that many died in the containment centers where they were rounded up, the camps where they were held before removal even physically happened, before the marches. The marches that took place over 2,200 miles of land and sea routes, moving the people from the east to the Midwest. The people who witnessed the Trail of Tears, people who were landowners on areas where the Trail of Tears went past, or missionaries, or people who traveled for one reason or another with the Cherokees, suggest that the number was more like 4,000 instead of 400. Today, scholars think that's probably a conservative figure. Somewhere between a quarter and a third of the Cherokee Nation was lost during the Trail of Tears. And those who were lost were those who were least likely to be able to endure starvation, exposure to the elements, marching 10 miles a day in knee-deep snow, for example. In other words, the elderly and the infants, so that the bulk of the Cherokee Nation arrived in Indian Territory without its past and without its future, without its oldest and youngest members. It's also a moral wrong because one of the arguments used to justify the Trail of Tears was a bald-faced lie, the idea that the Cherokees would not be comfortable in the environment of the new United States. But the fact is, by the 1830s, the Cherokees had a written language, a written and ratified constitution, a bilingual national press, a bilingual national newspaper, institutions of higher learning for both men and women. Some scholars suggest a significantly higher literacy rate for the Cherokees than for members of the surrounding states. The idea that Cherokees could not adapt, could not at some level assimilate with the culture is ridiculous. But it was a justification for taking things away from Cherokees and giving them to U.S. citizens. If we apply retroactively the definition of ethnic cleansing currently used by the United Nations, this was an act of ethnic cleansing, and it's a moment for us to have humility in U.S. History, to recognize that acts of ethnic cleansing don't just simply happen in other parts of the world in other times, but in fact it's a part of the fabric of our national history and our national consciousness.